Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Coach's Corner, the Journal-Star podcast with area football coaches. Today, we're joined by Tim Brilley, head coach at Morton High School. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
You bet. Well, it's been quite a season so far in the midline. Dunlap on top, peeking right behind him, and then everybody's just bunched up in the middle there, and you're one of those teams.
Yeah, we're happy with where we're at. I think we're playing our best football right now. Late in the season, we played our best game last week against Metamora, I believe. Mm-hmm. We probably have a game we wish we'd had back, but at the same time, we feel like we're getting better each week. And where we're at, we're 4-2. We can kind of control our own destiny, still get in the playoffs, and then whatever happens in the middle line happens, and we'll kind of figure it out from there.
And you guys started 3-0. And then you hit Pekin and Washington, and they beat you. But then back on track, as you said, against Metamora. What adjustments did you make from the Washington game to the Metamora game?
Really, from week one, we've kind of been adjusting, playing around with our offensive line. We knew we had to be better on the offensive line to get our run game going. We've done a pretty good job of that. Each week, I feel like our offensive line's gotten better. And really, this last week, we really kind of kept tinkering with things, moving things around. We maybe had guys dinged up a little bit, but tried to get different guys in different spots. And this week we really found a good combination of things that were working, and we got to a point where we're running the ball pretty much at will, the way we wanted to. We've had a strong passing attack so far all year. Metamora did a good job of taking some of that away, but we were able to find the running game, which we really needed for our offensive line. And I feel like going forward, our balance, just the ability to do both, is really going to be helpful for us.
Yeah, you've been one of the more interesting teams to follow this year, in the sense that you've kind of reinvented yourselves. A fast, run-oriented team last year with Jarrett Kreider and Nolan Donald kind of leading the way, and now you've got Riley Richards at quarterback, more of a drop-back guy, and you're throwing more.
Sure.
You're a bigger team now, and you're more of a full platoon team as well.
Yeah, we've kind of, as the years gone on, we've played more guys both ways, honestly, since we've talked last. And we do have the ability probably to throw the ball a little bit more. We have some weapons out at receiver. What I'm really happy with is defensively how we're playing. The last few years we played okay defensively. We struggled to get stops against good teams. We did that again this year against Washington. We struggled to get off the field against them. But once you give them a 2-possession lead, it's hard when they know they can run the ball, and that's all they have to do. We had a few opportunities early Friday night before the game got suspended to get off the field on 3rd and long, and I think that those really cost us in that game. But this last week against Metamora, we probably couldn't have played much better defensively. We did a great job defending the run. They snuck in one passing touchdown there that was really pretty well covered. We just took a poor angle, and they ended up scoring on that one. But we forced a turnover. We scored on defense. So we're feeling pretty good about where we're at right now.
And we've talked about Seth Glatz, your running back, your sophomore running back, who's had a nice season for you. 316 yards the other day. That's quite a breakout game, and 4 touchdowns as well. Tell me a little bit about Seth and his development, and to be able to break into the lineup as a sophomore.
Yeah, Seth's we have about 8 or 9 guys at running back that are upperclassmen, but we knew Seth was going to be a special kid probably last year. He's got good speed. He's probably not one of the fastest kids we've had in our program since I've been there, compared to a Nolan Donald. He's not the biggest kid in the world, but he's a hard-nosed kid. He's not going to shy away from contact. He's a complete back in that he can run the ball, he can catch the ball in the backfield. He really grasps the entire concept. He's really a good defensive player too. We haven't used him much on defense, but we're kind of getting to that point. But really, I think his progress has come along as well with our offensive line. He's had to get better each week. He's started good at times. He had a big screen pass for a touchdown week 1. He struggled with his vision a little early, but at the same time, so has the offensive line. So as the offensive line's gotten better, he seems to have gotten better. We never intended to give him the ball 36 times the other night, but it just kind of happened. We found some things that were working, and we wanted to stick with it and to establish that run game. And we feel like our confidence in his confidence has grown as we've moved on.
And I spoke with him the other day. Nice young man. I asked him about whether he thought he could, be where he's at now, coming in as a sophomore. And he said, well, at the beginning, before the season started, he was being used more defensively as a safety. and he thought maybe that might be where he'd see some time. So he was a little, how'd that work?
We're still giving him reps in practice just so he's ready to go. His brother Zeke starts for us at at safety, and he's an undersized kid, but he will cut you in half. He's that type of kid. He's not afraid of contact. He's always involved in tackles and stuff like that. And Seth, honestly, his freshman year, played a lot of JV, a lot of sophomore football, and he showed a lot of that as well. So we know that we've got guys that are willing to tackle, and he was a guy that was in the mix there. He's still kind of in the mix, but we've got two other safeties we've been playing quite a bit. Offensively at running back that was kind of the big question all offseason when we had Bradley Getz a few years ago, really solid running back, and then last year we had Tag Gramp and Connor Fisher. Both are playing college football right now. And then obviously Nolan Donald in the backfield. So we had to find that solid back that could really run our whole offense, be a downhill runner, but also be able to get outside. And I think Seth kind of fits both molds. We still got some guys behind him that are pretty talented, but right now he kind of has the hot hand, and he's kind of developed as that guy.
Let's talk a little bit more about the conference. The teams really, there seems to be more parity this year.
Sure.
Last year obviously Washington ran away with it, and Dunlap the year before, Metamora is usually strong. But this year there's more teams with a shot at, contending.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, Pekin's got a ton of speed. They're really good offensively. They play solid defense. That's a game we wish we had back, but they, it is what it is. You win, you lose. And Washington's a big physical team. I think they're younger and inexperienced compared to what they were the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Same with us. We had a lot of 2-year starters coming back last year, and a lot of really good talent. We've got 4, I think, college football players playing at the next level right now from that senior class. And I think we got some guys. There's still a lot of talent in our league. Maybe not to the level of the Big Ten, stuff like that, but at the same time, I still think we got a lot of really good players, and the talent is deep on all these teams.
Well, let's get into your evolution as a coach. As a kid, was it always football? Did you play other sports?
I was honestly started out as a basketball guy. I was kind of never played football until I went to high school. I knew I loved football. I was a Notre Dame fan growing up, Catholic school kid. Growing up in Decatur, Illinois, always went to Catholic grade school. I was always going to go to St. Teresa High School. For high school, and I always grew up loving St. Teresa football. But I never played. I never played JFL or anything like that. I don't know why. My parents never really just were into it, I guess, and I never really pursued it. They didn't have the opportunities they have now with JFL. It was only a citywide type deal, Decatur. So I just kind of waited till I got into high school. And once I got into high school, I really fell in love with it, and I really knew pretty much from when I got around football that I want to be a part of my life for the rest of my life, hopefully.
And you played offensive line in high school? I
played, honestly, tight end and defensive end in high school, and then I played offensive line in college.
Okay.
Where I went to McKendree University.
Okay. And McKendree is obviously a small school power.
Sure.
Did they go to the playoffs when you were there?
Yeah, when we were there, they were still in the NAIA. They're now NCAA Division II. Coach Carl Pelker, he's kind of a legend in the small college ranks. He's a lot of people. I mean, there's probably 100 high school coaches throughout the country. There's multiple coaches that I know that all played for Coach Pelker, either at his time at Milliken or at McKendree. So kind of cut from his cloth, and grew up with him, and some of his assistant coaches are some of my biggest role models and mentors getting into the coaching world. So played offensive line there for 4 years. I wasn't a great player, but we did have a lot of success as a team. Honestly, I chose McKendree because I wanted to go somewhere where we'd win and be successful. It wasn't so much about me getting on the field. Senior year, I was able to get on the field a little bit as an offensive lineman, right tackle. I was honestly playing behind a sophomore who's very talented and very good, and had a few opportunities to play, made the most of those opportunities, and we were able to win an outright conference championship, and we made the playoffs every year. Our sophomore year, we went to the semifinals and lost to a good Georgetown, Kentucky team who was a perennial NAIA powerhouse, and we'd actually beat that team week 2 and ran into them again in the semifinals. They got us. So.
At what point did you realize you wanted to be a coach?
Really, I think in high school. I really knew that I wanted to be around it, and that was probably going to be the only way I'd be around it. When I went into college, I went right into education, and with PE, I have a degree with my PE in driver's ed, and then I have a master's in administration that I got after I graduated from college. And I had a 5th year of college left, but no eligibility left. So I went to Coach Pelker and I told him I want to start being a student assistant or helping in any way I could to get into coaching. And that, I'd played on the offensive side of the ball, so I really wanted to get onto the defensive side. And that's kind of where they put me. They put me with the defensive line. And I was an assistant defensive line coach, and they put me up in the booth in games. And it was a great experience, something I could never replace.
And then you moved on to your alma mater to coach. And
first, I was an assistant though for 5 years in Breeze Central, which is down south. Yeah, and I lived with my wife and I, who's a high school sweetheart of mine, I guess you could say. I was actually out of high school when we started dating, but she went to SIUE and I went to McKendree. We stayed together that entire time, and eventually got married and moved to Edwardsville, which is kind of our midpoint. She was working in St. Louis, and I was working in Breeze, Illinois, which is southern Illinois. It's about 40 miles east of St. Louis. And I was an assistant freshman coach my first year, and then I went on to become the defensive coordinator my second year. So I'm literally 24 years old, being a varsity defensive coordinator. The head coach was the same age as me. It was kind of an ironic.
Wow.
It was kind of a weird situation where we were both kind of heading this program up as young guys, and they really showed a lot of faith in us, the administration. And that head coach is still the head coach to this day, however many years ago that was, 14, 15 years ago. And he's doing a great job down there. And then I moved on, as you said, to my alma mater of St. Teresa in 2011 as a 27-year-old head coach.
Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment right there to be a head coach that young. Yeah,
it was one of those things. Right out of college, I thought I was ready to be a head coach just because I thought I knew a lot. And it's the old adage that you don't know what you don't know until you go through those experiences. And you have a learning curve no matter what, especially your first time being a head coach, of how you want to run a program and do things of that nature. And I felt like things went well. We made the playoffs 4 out of the 5 years we were at St. Teresa, and it was probably time for a change, and that's really where we moved on to Morton. And I really took a lot of things I learned at St. Teresa and things that didn't go well at St. Teresa. I've applied in different ways at Morton, I believe.
And you look around the area, and there are quite a few former offensive linemen who are head coaches around here, and you obviously joined that ranks. Obviously, offensive linemen maybe sometimes are overlooked, but they have to really know the intricacies of the offense, don't they? Yeah,
they're the guys that don't get a lot of the credit, but they're there because they love the game. They're not worried about getting on in the Journal Star on Fridays or the podcasts, or they're not worried about attention so much, and that's just kind of how they're built and how they're brought along. So I've always been a kind of that guy. I've enjoyed line play on both sides of the ball, and I enjoy winning battles in the trenches and stuff like that. And I don't necessarily coach that. I've got coaches that coach both spots, but I spend a lot of time with those guys, and really it's been a good experience, and it's kind of built my backbone on what we're trying to do. We're always trying to be a run-first team, a good defensive team, and then kind of build off of that.
What do you like about coaching at Morton?
Well, it's a great community, first off. They've really been awesome. I don't live in the community, but since day one, everybody's been very welcoming, very happy with what we do. They really appreciate what I try to do, not only as just a football coach, but what I try to do to help kids off the field. Very supportive administration. Scott Jones is an awesome athletic director. My assistant, I have a great staff right now, which is very important, especially at a high level of football like the Middle Illini plays. You got to have great coaches around you to help you out, and we have great kids. I think we have, we don't have the biggest kids in the world. We're never going to have the biggest offensive line in the Middle Illini, and we realize that as coaches. But we have a lot of really good kids. We've got a lot of good athletes that want to do well. And, we don't have a lot of problems that are real problems. We just go to work every day. We try to work hard and get the most out of the kids we have in the building.
And you've got a wonderful facility there. It's fun to watch a game, fun to cover a game there.
Yeah, I honestly believe it's one of the best facilities in the state of Illinois. I mean, it's beautiful. Our home community is awesome. Probably one of the best atmospheres I've been a part of was last weekend against Metamora with our band stayed all 4 quarters. Our student body was going crazy the entire game. It was loud. The stands were full. We've got the new video board that was it brings another aspect to the atmosphere. It's just you can't ask for much else. But so it's really an awesome place to be.
If you could sit down with any coach, dead or alive,
okay,
and kind of pick his brain. Could be college, could be NFL, whatever level. Who would it be?
The first two people that came right to my mind were Nick Saban or Bill Belichick. I kind of see myself as a defensive-minded person first. I kind of believe in the philosophies they believe in, that focus on where you're at, what you're doing right now. Focus on the next game. Don't worry about, a couple games down the road. Two of my favorite people to read up on and read articles on, read books on, and they've been true to themselves pretty much most of their, especially down the stretch of their careers. They're people that I've always liked to watch their teams play. They always play hard, and they're always just coached really, really well. So probably, details, and have a lot of questions about details and things like that.
Tell me a little about your coaching influences. Obviously, your college coach.
Sure.
Anybody else who've
Yeah, sure. Two of my high school coaches were very influential. My high school head coach was the guy I replaced, Scott Davis. He was a big mentor in my life. Really got me, understanding how football can give back to you, help you grow as a human being, grow as a man, and can give you back and to learn those life lessons that you can learn from the football field. And also my high school offensive line coach, who was lucky enough, Bill Tapscott. He was a Decatur public school teacher who coached at St. Teresa, and he's a famous name in Decatur just because he's known as a great guy. And he was lucky. I was lucky enough to have him on my staff my last year at St. Teresa as the offensive line assistant coach, and just a great guy, and just taught me how to treat kids. And there's a toughness level you got to have with football, but at the same time, you don't have to be rough and gruff all the time with kids, and that you can show them that you care about them. You can have a relationship with them. And then obviously my college coaches, the assistant coaches. Cameron Pettis was the head coach at Belleville West. He moved on to a high school in Georgia this last offseason, and he's my son's godfather, actually. So okay. I was his assistant as a defensive line coach at McKendree my 1 year, but he really took me under his wing and taught me what it meant to work as a coach, how to work as a coach, how to break down film, how to prepare your scout teams and stuff like that, how to game plan. Really helped me in those aspects that were really X's and O's, but also showed me the things that how to treat your players and coach with a lot of energy and enthusiasm.
And finally, just discussing the next few weeks ahead for your team. Obviously, a tough stretch of games to finish off the season, but you're only a couple of games away from qualifying for the playoffs again, and I'm sure that's a goal that you set with your kids before the season. Tell me about that goal.
Yeah, so we got East Peoria coming up. Our goal is to get to 5 wins. We're sitting at 4-2 right now. That's all we can worry about. We can't worry about winning the conference or anything else right now. So our goal, obviously, is to win the next game, and that's kind of that Belichick, that Saban mentality of focus on right now and focus on what's right in front of you. And we want to come out and we want to continue to play our best football. We don't want to take a step back or anything like that. We want to play with that edge we played last Friday night against Metamora, and come out and find a way to win that 5th game. The next week, is senior night against Limestone. Limestone's a much improved team. I feel like we've seen them a few games on film. We just traded today for this coming week. Obviously, we play them next weekend, and then we'll trade our game Saturday. They're going to be another challenge. They're coming into our place. It's senior night for our kids. And then obviously Dunlap to finish out the season, who's a very talented team. They just beating Washington, beating Pekin, and tells me that they're going to be a very good football team. We've seen a little bit on film and when we're getting ready for East Peoria and some of these other schools we played against, and they have their own set of problems they present for us, and that obviously we'll worry about that here in a few weeks.
Well, thank you for joining us today. That concludes today's podcast. So long for now.